The Grand Assembly Hall on Prime was filled with representatives from 347 different species. The ceiling stretched so high that clouds actually formed near the top. Floating platforms carried delegates from one side of the chamber to the other. Holographic displays showed the faces of billions watching from across the galaxy. This was the heart of galactic civilization, the place where the most important decisions were made. Ambassador stood at the center of the hall with her small human delegation. She was a woman in her 50s with gray streaks in her dark hair and eyes that had seen too many battles and too many betrayals. Beside her stood Admiral, a tall man with broad shoulders and a face that looked like it was carved from stone. Behind them were 6 other humans, all wearing the formal blue uniforms of Earth's diplomatic corps. They were surrounded by aliens. Some were tall and thin with skin like glass. Others were short and covered in thick fur. There were beings made of living crystal, creatures that floated in tanks of strange liquid, and entities that seemed to exist partly in dimensions humans could not see. The diversity of life in the galaxy was beyond imagination. But today, all of these different species had come together for one purpose. They were here to judge humanity. High Arbiter Lan of the species rose from his elevated platform. He was a reptilian creature with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on his face. His scales were deep purple, and he wore robes of shimmering silver. As the leader of the Galactic Council, his word was law. "The Council has reviewed all evidence and heard all testimony," Lan announced. His voice was translated instantly into thousands of languages through the neural implants that every delegate wore. "We have reached our decision." Felt her heart beating faster, but she kept her face calm. She had been preparing for this moment for months. The signs had been there for years, really. Every time humanity did something the other species could not understand, the whispers grew louder. Every time human soldiers saved a colony or human scientists made a breakthrough, the fear increased. "Humanity is hereby expelled from the Galactic Council," Lan declared. "Your species is judged to be too aggressive, too unpredictable, and too dangerous to remain among civilized peoples. You are given 60 standard days to withdraw all personnel, ships, and assets from Council space. After that time, any human found within our borders will be arrested and detained indefinitely." A murmur ran through the assembly. Some delegates looked uncomfortable, but most nodded in agreement. Notice that the ambassador, a gentle creature with soft blue skin and large dark eyes, actually looked relieved. She remembered that humanity had saved them from a devastating asteroid impact just 12 years ago. Millions were alive because human engineers had developed the technology to redirect the asteroid. And now they had voted to throw humanity out. "May I speak?" asked, her voice steady despite the anger burning inside her. Lan gestured with one clawed hand. "You may." Stepped forward. "In the 200 years since humanity joined the Galactic Council, we have contributed more to the safety and prosperity of this galaxy than any other species. We developed the shield technology that protects your trade routes. We created the medical treatments that cured the plague. We sent our soldiers to defend colonies that were not our own, asking nothing in return." She paused, looking around the chamber. Thousands of alien eyes stared back at her. When the collective abandoned the outer territories to pirates, it was human ships that restored order. When the Civil War threatened to destabilize the entire sector, it was human diplomats who negotiated the peace. When the moon was about to break apart and rain destruction on this very world, it was human scientists who found a way to stabilize it. Lan's 4 eyes narrowed. "And that is precisely the problem, Ambassador. You act without permission. You insert yourselves into situations where you are not wanted. You make decisions that affect billions of lives without consulting the Council. You are not team players, as your species likes to say. You are loose cannons." "We saved lives," spoke up, unable to contain himself any longer. "Billions of lives." "You took matters into your own hands," Lan replied coldly. You decided what was right and what was wrong. You appointed yourselves the protectors of the galaxy. The Council never asked for your protection. The Council does not need your protection. Felt a bitter laugh trying to escape her throat. She suppressed it. So this is how it ends. 2 centuries of service and we are cast out like criminals. You are not criminals, Land said. You are simply too dangerous to keep among us. Perhaps in time your species will mature. Perhaps you will learn patience and restraint. Until then, you are not welcome here. The vote was formalized within the hour. 312 species voted for expulsion. 35 voted against, mostly smaller species that humanity had helped directly. The rest abstained. It was the most one-sided vote in Council history. Captain Danny Morales watched the broadcast from the bridge of the starship Endeavour. He was a young officer, only 32 years old, with dark hair and a quick smile that was nowhere to be seen today. His crew of 50 humans sat at their stations in stunned silence. "So that is it," said Lieutenant, his second in command. She was a red-haired woman from the Mars colonies with a temper to match. "We just pack up and go home, after everything we have done for them." Danny turned away from the screen. Through the viewport, he could see the lights of Prime glittering below. Somewhere down there, and were gathering the delegation for the long journey home. Somewhere down there, aliens were already celebrating the departure of the troublesome humans. "We do what we have always done," Danny said quietly. "We survive, we adapt, we get stronger, and when they come crawling back because they will, we will be ready." Frowned, "You think they will come back?" "I know they will. The galaxy is a dangerous place. There are threats out there that the Council cannot even imagine. They think they are safe because they have numbers and they have rules and they have their precious voting system. But rules do not stop bullets. Votes do not deflect missiles. When the real danger comes, and it will come, they will remember who used to protect them." The human exodus began within the week. Colonies that had taken decades to build were abandoned. Trade agreements that had made humanity wealthy were dissolved. Military outposts that had kept the peace went dark one by one. Ships carrying millions of humans streamed toward the border of Council space, heading for the unknown regions beyond. The Council called these regions the Outer Veil. It was a vast expanse of unexplored space filled with unstable stars, dangerous nebulae, and worlds that had never been charted. No civilized species ventured there because there was nothing of value and everything to fear. But humanity was not afraid. Humanity had never been afraid. Within 3 months, the last human had left Council space. The border was sealed. Communication channels were closed. For the first time in 2 centuries, humanity was alone. On Prime, the Council held a grand celebration. Fireworks lit up the sky in a dozen colors. Speeches were made about the dawn of a new era of peace and cooperation. Delegates congratulated each other on their wisdom and courage. The aggressive, unpredictable humans were finally gone. For a time, there was peace. For a time, the galaxy forgot about the strange species from the small blue planet called Earth. But in the darkness of the Outer Veil, humanity was building something new, and they would never forget what had been done to them. 15 years passed in silence. The Galactic Council continued as it always had. Species traded with each other, argued with each other, and occasionally went to war with each other over minor disputes. The great machine of galactic civilization turned slowly forward, grinding through the centuries as it had for thousands of years before humanity ever reached the stars. Sometimes, in quiet moments, delegates would remember the strange beings who had once sat among them. They would recall the humans with their odd emotions, their quick tempers, and their strange habit of rushing into danger without thinking. Some remembered fondly. Most did not remember at all. Humanity became a footnote in history, a brief chapter in the long story of the galaxy. But beyond the borders of Council space, in the darkness of the Outer Veil, something remarkable was happening. The humans had not crumbled as the council predicted. They had not fought among themselves and destroyed each other as many species expected. Instead, they had done what humans had always done throughout their history. They had adapted, survived, and grown stronger. Director Samuel Price stood on the observation deck of the capital city, looking out over the skyline of New Houston. The city stretched for hundreds of kilometers in every direction, a gleaming monument to human determination. Towers of glass and steel rose toward the orange sky. Flying vehicles moved between the buildings in orderly streams. Parks and gardens filled the spaces between structures, because humans had learned long ago that they needed green things around them to stay sane. The planet was called Haven, and it was the heart of the human sovereignty. It had been a barren rock when the first settlers arrived 15 years ago. Now it was home to 200 million people and served as the administrative center for 47 colonized star systems. Samuel was an older man now, with white hair and deep lines on his face. He had been a junior diplomat during the exile, watching helplessly as the council voted to cast his species out. That memory still burned inside him. It drove him forward every single day. "The council meeting is about to begin, Director," said his assistant, a young woman named Grace Turner. Samuel nodded and walked to the conference room. The Sovereignty Council was already assembled, a group of 12 humans representing different aspects of their new civilization. There were military leaders, scientists, diplomats, and administrators. They were the best humanity had to offer. Dr. Christina Bailey stood at the head of the table, ready to present her latest findings. She was the head of the Advanced Research Division, a brilliant woman who had revolutionized human technology in the years since the exile. Her dark skin was touched with gray at the temples now, but her eyes were as sharp as ever. "As you know, we have made significant progress in several key areas," Christina began. "Our faster-than-light communication system is now fully operational. We can send messages across unlimited distances instantaneously. The Council still relies on courier ships for long-range communication. We are decades ahead of them." She touched a control, and a holographic display appeared above the table. "Our medical technology has also advanced considerably. The regeneration treatment we developed last year can extend human by approximately 300 years while maintaining full physical and mental capacity. The oldest members of our society will live to see things we cannot even imagine." Admiral leaned forward. His hair had gone completely gray, but his body was still strong thanks to the new medical treatments. "And the military applications." Christina smiled slightly. "Our new shield technology can withstand any weapon currently in the Council arsenal. Our ship engines are 40% faster than anything they have. Our weapons systems are more accurate, more powerful, and more efficient. If the Council tried to attack us today, we would destroy them completely." "How many ships do we have?" Samuel asked. Answered, 2,000 combat vessels, ranging from fast attack craft to heavy dreadnoughts. Every single one of them is more advanced than the best Council warship. We also have 3,000 support vessels, including transports, medical ships, and engineering craft. Our personnel numbers approximately 5 million trained soldiers, with another 10 million in reserve. Now serving as the Sovereignty's chief diplomatic advisor, spoke up. "We should not forget that we also have an extensive intelligence network. We still have contacts within Council space, people who believe humanity was treated unfairly. They send us regular reports on Council activities." Samuel nodded slowly, processing all of this information. "And what do those reports tell us?" His expression grew serious. "The Council is weaker than they realize. Their military has grown soft without a real threat to face. Their economies are stagnant. Many member species are unhappy with Council leadership, but too afraid to speak up. And there are rumors of something troubling in the far reaches of the galaxy." "What kind of rumors?" "A species called the..." They come from a region of space beyond the Council's usual patrol routes. According to our sources, they have been expanding aggressively for the past decade. Several small colonies on the outer edges of Council territory have gone silent. The Council claims these are natural disasters or communication failures, but our contacts believe otherwise. Christina pulled up another display. We have been monitoring communications when possible. Their technology is crude compared to ours, but it is surprisingly effective. They use biological engineering to enhance their soldiers, making them stronger, faster, and more aggressive. Their ships are built for war, not trade or exploration. Everything about their civilization is focused on conquest. Studied the data with a soldier's eye. They are building an invasion force, a big one. That is our assessment as well, Christina confirmed. Based on their expansion rate and the size of their military, we estimate they will be ready to launch a major offensive within the next few years. Samuel stood and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was setting over New Houston, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. Children were playing in a park below, their laughter rising faintly through the glass. This was what they had built. This was what they were protecting. "Do we warn the Council?" Grace asked quietly. Shook her head. They would not believe us. They would think we were trying to manipulate them, to scare them into letting us back in. High Arbiter Lan has made it clear that any communication from humanity will be ignored. Lan is a fool, muttered. Lan is dead, replied. He died 3 years ago. His successor is a younger named Eth. She is more reasonable, but she is also bound by Council tradition. She cannot reach out to us without appearing weak. Samuel turned back to face the Council. Then we wait. We continue to build. We continue to prepare. And when they attack, because they will attack, we will be ready to respond. And if the Council falls before they ask for help? Christina asked. Samuel's face was hard. Then they fall. We will not beg to save people who threw us away. If they want our help, they will have to ask for it. They will have to admit they were wrong. The meeting ended, but the conversation stayed with all of them. In the weeks and months that followed, reports from Council space grew more alarming. They were moving faster than anyone expected. Colonies were disappearing. Fleet movements were detected near the border. Danny Morales, now a captain with his own ship, read the reports with growing concern. He had served in the Council fleet before the exile, had fought alongside alien species against common enemies. Despite everything that had happened, he could not simply forget those experiences. "They are not ready," he said during a late night on the bridge of his cruiser. "The Council has no idea what is coming for them." Shrugged. "That is their problem now, not ours." "Is it? When they finish with the Council, where do you think they will look next?" Had no answer for that. Neither did anyone else. All they could do was watch, wait, and prepare for the storm that was coming. And in the darkness between the stars, the war machine continued to grow. The first major attack came on a bright morning on the colony world of Mythos IV. 12 million lived on that peaceful planet. They were farmers, teachers, artists, and children. They had never known war. Their world had been protected by the might of the Galactic Council for centuries, and they believed that protection would last forever. They were wrong. The fleet appeared without warning. 200 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly above the main continent. They did not send demands. They did not ask for surrender. They simply opened fire. The planetary defense grid lasted 17 minutes. The small garrison of Council troops lasted another 2 hours. By the time the sun set on Mythos IV, there was nothing left but burning cities and fields of the dead. 12 million lives ended in 6 hours. There were no survivors. When news of the attack reached Council space, there was panic. Emergency sessions were called. Angry speeches were made. Blame was assigned in every direction, but nothing useful was accomplished. High Arbiter Eth tried to maintain order, but she was young and inexperienced. The older delegates did not respect her. The military commanders did not listen to her. Everyone had their own opinion about what should be done, and no one could agree on anything. A response fleet was assembled. It was the largest military force the Council had gathered in 300 years. 500 warships from a dozen different species, carrying the best soldiers and the most advanced weapons the Council possessed. They were confident. They were proud. They believed they would crush the invaders and restore peace to the galaxy. The fleet was destroyed in 3 days. They had been studying Council defenses for generations. They knew every weakness, every blind spot, every flaw in the Council's military doctrine. Their weapons were specifically designed to penetrate Council shields. Their tactics were developed to exploit Council formations. When the two forces met in battle, it was not a fight. It was a slaughter. More attacks followed. Forces pushed deeper into Council territory, conquering world after world. The Collective, a group of species that had formed the core of Council military strength, saw their defensive line collapse completely. Colony after colony fell silent. Billions of beings were killed or captured. There was placed under siege. Eth watched from her palace as enemy ships filled the sky, knowing that her world could be destroyed at any moment. She had never felt so helpless in her life. In the bunker deep beneath the surface, what remained of the Council Assembly met in emergency session. The Grand Hall on Prime was gone, destroyed in a bombardment that had killed millions. Now the leaders of galactic civilization huddled in a cramped underground room, surrounded by bare metal walls and flickering emergency lights. "We have lost 400 worlds," reported the military commander, a battle-scarred veteran of a species called the Thorn. "Our fleet strength is down to 15% of pre-war levels. At current rates of loss, they will reach the core systems within 8 months." "What about reinforcements?" asked the delegate, his blue skin pale with fear. "There are no reinforcements. Every species has committed everything they have. It is not enough. It will never be enough." Silence fell over the room. For the first time in their lives, the leaders of the galaxy faced the real possibility of complete defeat. Everything they had built, everything they had achieved, was about to be swept away by an enemy they had dismissed as primitive savages. Eth stood slowly. She was barely 40 years old by standards, young enough to be the child of most delegates in the room. But she was the High Arbiter now, and she had to lead. "There is one option we have not considered," she said quietly. The room stirred. Delegates exchanged glances. "We must contact the humans." The reaction was immediate and explosive. Voices rose in anger and disbelief. The delegate nearly fainted. The Thorn commander laughed bitterly. "The humans," someone spat. "We exiled them 15 years ago. They hate us." "They have every reason to hate us," Eth agreed. "We called them dangerous. We called them unpredictable. We threw them out of civilized space and celebrated their departure. But we were wrong. They were not the danger. They were our protection against the danger. And now the danger is here, and we are dying because we sent away the only species that could have saved us." "They will never help us," the delegate said. "Why would they, after what we did to them?" Eth looked at him steadily. "Because that is who they are. That is what they do. Even when we rejected them, they tried to help us. Even when we voted against them, they saved our colonies. It is in their nature to protect those who cannot protect themselves. I am betting our survival on that nature. And if you are wrong, then we die anyway. At least this way we have a chance." A single ship was prepared for the mission. It was a small diplomatic vessel, unarmed and undefended. Ambassador of the people volunteered to carry the message. He had voted for human expulsion 15 years ago. He had made speeches calling humanity a threat to galactic peace. Now he would have to face them and beg for forgiveness. The journey to the border of human space took 2 weeks. Spent most of that time alone in his cabin thinking about what he would say. He remembered the human ambassador standing in the council chamber as the vote was announced. He remembered the look in her eyes. Not anger, not hatred, but something worse. Disappointment. When the ship crossed into human territory, it was intercepted within hours. Had expected this. Human technology had always been impressive, and 15 years of independent development had clearly made it even better. "Unknown vessel, you are entering human sovereignty territory," came the transmission. The voice was calm and professional. "Identify yourself immediately." Activated his communication channel with trembling hands. "This is Ambassador of the Galactic Council. I come bearing a message for your leaders. The Council formally requests humanity's aid in the war against the Empire." There was a long pause. Could imagine what the humans were thinking. He could imagine them laughing at him, at the irony of this moment. The species that had been told they were not needed was now being begged to save the galaxy. "Hold your position," the voice finally said. "An escort will arrive to bring you to haven." The escort arrived 6 hours later. It was a single cruiser, sleek and powerful, with weapons that sensors could not even properly analyze. He was brought aboard and treated politely but coolly. No one spoke to him beyond what was necessary. The journey to Haven took 3 days. When finally saw the human capital, he was amazed. The planet had been a barren rock when humanity was exiled. Now it was a thriving world covered in cities and farmland and forests. Orbital stations circled above, construction yards building ships that made the warships look like toys. Humanity had not just survived. They had thrived beyond anything could have imagined. He was brought before the Sovereignty Council in the central chamber of New Houston. The room was not as grand as the old council hall on Prime, but it was impressive in its own way. Simple, functional, powerful. Director Samuel Price sat at the head of the table. His face was unreadable. Beside him were Admiral, Ambassador, and a dozen other humans that did not recognize. "Ambassador," Samuel said, "I remember you. You gave a speech once, calling humanity a disease that needed to be purged from civilized space." Lowered his head. "I did, and I was wrong. I was a fool. We were all fools." "Yes, you were." "Director Price, my people are dying. The entire galaxy is dying. They are destroying everything in their path. Our fleets are gone. Our defenses are shattered. Within a year there will be nothing left but slaves and corpses." Raised his head, forcing himself to meet Samuel's eyes. "I am not asking you to forgive us. I am not asking you to forget what we did. I am asking you to save us, because you are the only ones who can." The room was silent. Could feel the weight of 15 years of anger and resentment pressing down on him. He had never felt so small in his life. Finally spoke, "And what does the council offer in return?" "Anything," replied immediately. "Everything. Full membership, leadership of the military alliance, seats on the governing council. Whatever you want, it is yours. We will give you anything if you will just help us." Samuel exchanged glances with his advisors. Then he stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. "Go back to your council, Ambassador. Tell them humanity accepts. We will fight your war. But understand this. When it is over, things will be different. The galaxy will not forget who saved it, and neither will we." Nearly collapsed with relief. Thank you, Director Price. You will not regret this." Samuel did not turn around. "I know I will not, but your council might." The human fleet arrived at the front lines 6 weeks after Ambassador returned to council space. Admiral stood on the bridge of the Sovereignty flagship, the dreadnought Defiance. It was the largest warship humanity had ever built, nearly 3 kilometers long and bristling with weapons that the council could not even understand. The bridge was a vast chamber filled with holographic displays and control stations, staffed by the best officers in the human military. Around the Defiance, a fleet of 800 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Heavy cruisers, fast destroyers, attack frigates, and support vessels spread out in perfect formation. Their hulls gleamed in the light of a dying red star, polished and deadly. Looked at the tactical display and felt a cold satisfaction. After 15 years of building and preparing, humanity was finally going to show the galaxy what they could do. All ships report status, he ordered. First through 5th battle groups in position, reported Captain Danny Morales from the cruiser Relentless. Danny had been given command of the Vanguard Force, the ships that would lead the attack. Weapons charged, shields at maximum, crews ready for combat. 6th through 10th standing by, added commander from her destroyer. She had risen through the ranks quickly, proving herself in dozens of training exercises. Now she would face a real enemy for the first time. Studied the tactical display carefully. The fleet was massive, over 3,000 ships arranged in a defensive formation around the conquered world of. It was the most heavily fortified position the enemy held, a symbol of their power and their ambition. The Council remnant fleet was positioned behind the human formation. 200 vessels, all that remained of the once mighty Galactic Armada. They were battered and from months of losing battles. Their crews were exhausted and afraid, but they had insisted on being part of this fight, on showing that they still had some courage left. Dr. Christina Bailey stood near the Admiral, monitoring the sensor feeds from her portable console. She had insisted on joining the fleet as a science advisor, wanting to see how her technologies performed in actual combat. The Council delegates are watching from their flagship, she reported. I am picking up transmissions to there. The entire galaxy is watching this battle. Good, said. Let them watch. Let them see what humans can do when we stop holding back. He opened a channel to the entire fleet. His voice would be heard by every human soldier, every pilot, every crew member in the formation. All ships, this is Admiral. 15 years ago, the galaxy told us we were not needed. They called us dangerous, unpredictable, unworthy of standing among civilized peoples. They were wrong about a lot of things, but they were right about one thing. We are dangerous. He paused, letting the words sink in. We are the storm they were afraid of. We are the fire they tried to put out. And today, we remind thee and the Council and every species in this galaxy why they should never have sent us away. The fleet surged forward. They responded immediately. Thousands of fighters launched from their carrier ships, swarming toward the human formation like angry insects. Heavy weapons platforms opened fire, sending streams of plasma and kinetic projectiles toward the advancing humans. The first shot struck human shields and dissipated harmlessly. Energy that should have torn through armor simply vanished into the protective fields that surrounded every human ship. They had never seen technology like this. Their weapons, which had destroyed Council fleets with ease, were useless. Return fire, commanded. Human weapons spoke for the first time. Plasma torpedoes, accelerated to nearly the speed of light, punched through armor like it was made of paper. Kinetic rounds shattered hulls and detonated ammunition magazines. Beam weapons sliced through formations, cutting ships in half. In the first hour of battle, 400 vessels were destroyed. Danny Morales led his vanguard group straight into the heart of the enemy formation. His cruiser, the Relentless, was designed for exactly this kind of close combat. Fast, maneuverable, and heavily armed, it danced between enemy ships, delivering devastating strikes at point-blank range. Target that carrier, Danny ordered. All forward batteries fire at will. The Relentless opened up with everything it had. The carrier, a massive vessel carrying hundreds of fighters, was torn apart in seconds. Debris scattered in all directions as the ship's power core went critical and exploded. Good hit, reported his weapons officer, a young woman named Cole. Carrier destroyed, moving to next target. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Human ships moved with precision and coordination that they could not match. Every shot found its target. Every maneuver was perfectly executed. 15 years of training and preparation were paying off. Commanded her destroyer group on the flank, protecting the main fleet from attempts to circle around. Her ships were smaller and faster than the cruisers, perfect for intercepting enemy scouts and harassing larger vessels. Strike group approaching from bearing 725, her sensor officer reported. 12 ships, heavy cruiser class. Smiled grimly. Let them come, all ships form up on me, we are going hunting. Her destroyers swept around in a tight arc, engines blazing. They caught the cruisers in a crossfire, pounding them from multiple angles. The enemy ships tried to return fire, but they were too slow, too clumsy. Within 15 minutes, all 12 were drifting wreckage. The commander, a massive warrior named, watched the battle from the bridge of his flagship. He was a veteran of 100 campaigns, a conqueror who had never known defeat. But today, for the first time in his life, he felt something unfamiliar. Fear. What are these creatures? He demanded, slamming his fist against his command throne. Our weapons do nothing to them. Our tactics fail at every turn. Who are they? His advisor, a smaller with calculating eyes, answered carefully. They are humans, Supreme Commander, the species that the Council exiled 15 years ago. The Council exiled their strongest warriors. Why would they do something so foolish? They were afraid of them, Supreme Commander, afraid of what humans might become if they were allowed to remain. Stared at the tactical display, watching his fleet being systematically destroyed. Red icons disappeared one by one, replaced by the cold emptiness of space. He understood fear now. He had used it as a weapon his entire life. But this was different. This was fear of something he could not control, could not defeat, could not even slow down. The battle lasted 12 hours. When it was over, the fleet was destroyed. Over 2,000 enemy ships were reduced to debris, their crews dead or scattered. Human losses were minimal, 37 ships damaged, 4 destroyed. The Council observers were silent with shock. They had expected a hard fight, a close victory if they were lucky. Instead, they had witnessed total domination. The humans had done in 12 hours what the entire Council military could not accomplish in 3 years of war. Admiral looked at the tactical display, now mostly clear of red icons. His face showed no celebration, no triumph, just satisfaction. Begin rescue operations, he ordered. Pick up any survivors and treat them humanely. They fought well, considering what they were up against. Christina Bailey raised an eyebrow. You want to save the enemy? Nodded. They are not evil, Doctor. They are just soldiers following orders from leaders who made bad decisions. Sound familiar? Besides, showing mercy costs us nothing and gains us respect. The galaxy is watching, remember. Let them see what kind of people we are. Word of the victory spread across the galaxy within days. Species that had given up hope began to resist again. Underground movements on conquered worlds launched attacks against their occupiers. Supply lines came under assault from partisans who had been waiting for any sign that the war could be won. The tide had turned, and everyone knew who had turned it. The campaign to liberate the galaxy took 18 months. System by system, world by world, the human-led alliance pushed back. Every battle ended the same way. Human technology and tactics overwhelmed enemy defenses. Conquered populations were freed. Enemy soldiers who surrendered were treated fairly. Those who fought to the death were given that death with professional efficiency. Admiral led the main fleet through the heart of occupied territory. Captain Danny Morales commanded the advance forces, striking enemy positions before they could prepare proper defenses. Commander ran special operations, inserting small teams onto occupied worlds to gather intelligence and support resistance movements. They learned to fear the human ships. They learned to recognize the sleek silhouettes, the distinctive weapons signatures, the communications frequencies. When humans arrived in a system, commanders often retreated without fighting. They knew what would happen if they stayed. Director Samuel Price monitored the war from Haven, coordinating the massive logistical effort required to keep the fleet supplied and reinforced. Ambassador worked with the Council remnant, helping them rebuild their shattered governments and restore order to liberated worlds. Dr. Christina Bailey traveled with the fleet, studying captured technology and developing countermeasures for new enemy weapons. Her work saved countless lives and ensured that human advantages remained decisive throughout the campaign. The final battle took place above the. It was a harsh planet, covered in jagged mountains and volcanic plains. The sky was a permanent brown haze from centuries of industrial pollution, but it was home to 12 billion, the heart of their empire and the source of their military power. The human fleet arrived with 2,000 warships. Allied forces from the Council added another 500 vessels, their crews eager to participate in the final victory. Across from them, the last of the armada waited in defensive formation around there. 3,000 ships, the largest concentration of enemy forces remaining in the galaxy, everything that had left. Supreme Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Devourer. He was older now, from wounds received in earlier battles. His scales had faded from bright orange to dull brown, but his eyes still burned with defiance. "Humans," he broadcast across all channels, his voice carrying to every ship in both fleets. "You have proven yourselves worthy opponents. I have never faced enemies as capable as you. In another universe, we might have been allies." Listen to the transmission from the Defiance. He felt a strange respect for the commander, had fought hard and well, even in a losing cause. He deserved an honest response. Supreme Commander replied, "Your people fought bravely. There is no shame in what happened here. You were simply facing something you could not defeat. Every species has limits." "You speak of limits," said, "but I see no limits in you. Your weapons destroy everything they touch. Your shields stop everything we throw at them. Your soldiers fight like demons and show mercy like saints. What are you truly? Where did you come from?" Considered the question. The entire galaxy was listening to this conversation, broadcast across thousands of worlds and translated into countless languages. "We come from a small blue planet called Earth," he said finally. "A world of oceans and mountains and forests. We lived there for millions of years, fighting each other, learning from each other, growing stronger with every generation. We faced ice ages and plagues and wars that nearly destroyed us, but we survived. We always survived." He paused, looking at the tactical display, at the thousands of ships waiting to fight and die. "We did not come to the stars looking for conquest. We came looking for friends. We found a galaxy full of species who feared us, who did not understand us, who eventually cast us out. And still we came back, not for revenge, not for power, but because there are things in this universe worth fighting for, things worth dying for. Your empire threatened those things, so we stopped you." Was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was heavy with resignation. "Then let this be our final battle. Let history remember that the people faced the humans and did not run. Whatever else they say about us, let them say that." "I will remember," promised, "and I will make sure others remember too." The battle began. It was the most brutal engagement of the war. They fought with the ferocity of a dying species, knowing they had nothing left to lose. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon was committed to the fight. They sold their lives as dearly as possible, taking human ships with them whenever they could. But human technology and tactics still proved superior. One by one, the ships fell. Cruisers were torn apart by plasma fire. Carriers were gutted by torpedo strikes. Fighters were swept from space by point defense systems. Danny Morales led his squadron through the heart of the formation, targeting the enemy flagship. The Relentless took heavy damage, its shields flickering under concentrated fire. Two of his escort ships were destroyed, their crews dying in fireballs of burning atmosphere. "All units focus fire on the Devourer," Danny ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "Take out their command ship and this is over." Plasma and kinetic rounds converged on his vessel. The shields flickered and failed. The hull buckled under the assault. On the bridge, alarms screamed and consoles exploded. Stood amid the destruction, watching his empire die. He felt no regret. He had lived as a warrior and he would die as one. There were worse fates. The final shot struck the Devourer's power core. For a single moment the ship blazed brighter than the sun. Then it was gone, scattered atoms drifting in the void. The remaining ships began broadcasting surrender signals. Watched the last enemy icons turn from red to gray. Around him, his bridge crew sat in exhausted silence. They had won. After 3 years of war and 18 months of campaign, they had won. "Accept all surrenders," he ordered. "Begin humanitarian operations for the civilian population. They are not responsible for what their leaders did. They deserve our protection now." 6 months later, a new Galactic Council was formed. The ceremony took place on Haven, in a grand hall built specifically for this purpose. Representatives from over 500 species gathered to witness the birth of a new galactic order. Some were species that had been members of the old council. Others were newcomers, peoples who had been conquered by and freed by the human alliance. Still others were species from the outer veil who had joined humanity during their exile. Ambassador stood at the podium, looking out over the vast assembly. She was older now, her hair completely gray, but her voice was strong and clear. 15 years ago, you told us we were not needed," she said. "You said we were too dangerous, too unpredictable, too aggressive to be part of civilized society. You voted to exile us to the darkness beyond your borders. You celebrated when we left." The assembly was silent. Many delegates could not meet her eyes. "And maybe you were right about some things. We are dangerous. We do act without waiting for permission. We do insert ourselves into situations where we are not wanted. But we also do something that none of you were willing to do. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. We protect the weak. We stand against evil, even when it costs us everything." She paused, letting her words sink in. "This new council will be different. We will not exile those we fear. We will not abandon those in need. We will not pretend that voting and talking and negotiating can solve every problem. Sometimes force is necessary. Sometimes someone has to be willing to pick up a weapon and stand between the innocent and those who would harm them." Looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates from dozens of species. "Humanity is willing to be that someone. We always have been. We always will be. That is our gift to the galaxy. Not conquest, not domination, but protection. We ask only that you never forget what we did for you, and that you never again throw away those who would give their lives to save yours." The assembly rose in applause that lasted for 10 minutes. On the observation deck of the Defiance watched the ceremony beside him stood Danny Morales, Christina Bailey, and dozens of others who had fought in the war. They had lost friends and colleagues. They bore scars that would never fully heal, but they had won. "Think it will last?" Danny asked quietly. Smiled. "Nothing lasts forever. The galaxy is too big, too complicated, too full of different species with different needs and different fears. There will be new conflicts, new challenges, new enemies. That is the nature of things." He turned to look at his officers, the men and women who had followed him through the darkest days of the war. "But we gave them a chance. We showed them what is possible when people stand together against evil. And when the next threat comes, and it will come, we will be ready. We will always be ready, because that is who we are. That is what it means to be human." Outside the viewport, the stars stretched endlessly into the void. Somewhere out there, new worlds waited to be explored. New species waited to be met. New adventures waited to be lived. and humanity would be there for all of it, not as exiles or outcasts, but as protectors and leaders. The species that the galaxy had thrown away had become the species that the galaxy could not live without. The future was uncertain, as futures always are, but one thing was sure. Whatever came next, humanity would face it together, and they would never again let anyone tell them they were not needed. The story of the exile was over. The story of the return was just beginning.